Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Breckland Council's Cabinet meeting on Monday the 13th of May 2024. It's 9:30, so we'll crack on with today's meeting. We'll move straight to item 1, which are the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 8th of April 2024, contained on pages 3 to 7 of colleagues' agenda pack. Everyone happy they're a true and accurate record? Super, thank you very much indeed. Item 2 then, apologies for absence, please, Teresa.
Thank you, Chairman. And Bowes. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Item 3, any urgent business? I've not been made aware of any. Item 4, declarations of interest. If any members have any declarations of interest, please declare them now.
I'd like to declare an interest on item 9, so I won't be taking part or voting on that matter. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Super. Item 5, non-members wishing to address the meeting. There are lots of you here today. It's great to see you all, and you are, as always, most welcome to participate on any items on today's business. Item 6, Chairman's announcements. I haven't got any for the purposes of this meeting. Item 7, Breckland's community funding. Councillor Ashby, please.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning. Just to confirm, as reported at the last Cabinet meeting, there were 47 successful applications for the D-Day grants and 2 from town and parish councils. And going forward, we've recently opened up our match community funding, and the first round will be running until the 14th of June. Because of the timescales, I've got no applications to present today. But over the course of now until April 2027, we will have £300,000 of community match funding available. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. Any questions in relation to that? If not, we'll move on to item 8, which is Breckland Council local plan preferred options. And I'm afraid you're going to have to just put up with my dulcet tones for both 2 items today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the Reg 18 preferred options process within the local plan. And I'm pleased to present this today for members to consider. The purpose of this document ultimately is to outline the Council's preferred policy direction and the strategic issues, its preferred development management policies and the range of the emerging site options as we move forward. This has been informed by feedback from previous widespread consultations covering matters such as growth scenarios, potential sites, sustainable rural communities, and this is ultimately been delivered through a commissioned evidence-based process. And throughout this consultation, we've aimed to seek key stakeholders' views with a focus on local communities at the heart of Breckland with the preferred options as we move forward, and that will be proposed by this council. Through the consultation process, the document's been informed by significant ongoing engagement, and that's taken place during 2023 and the early part of 2024. And this engagement has outlined the issues and options consultation report set out in Appendix 2 of today's agenda pack. There have been over 1,100 responses, and there have been 1,700 residents registered on the Council's database to receive regular updates and engage in this process. This highlights a number of key issues and priorities for the plan making for the Breckland local plan. It's emphasised the need to deliver housing in locations, employment within the district and appropriate infrastructure to deliver at the right time to ensure that both of those areas are met. The feedback challenges has given us regard to climate change, protect resources such as water and place housing away from areas such which are prone to flooding, which we've seen very sadly in recent years. Communities want to plan to ensure that development is well designed, and the recent work we've done for the design code will actually embed our future aspirations of what we want our communities to look like, empowering and respecting characters of towns and villages across the district with those individual palettes. The consultation told us that there's a wish to deliver new and improved transport infrastructure with robust understanding, delivering that mechanism for delivering transport improvements across the district, ensuring those rural communities can get access across the whole of the county and the region. Development should also look at walking and cycling opportunities. Some of these have been missed in previous plans. The natural and historic environment is also really important to local people, together with the need to support biodiversity net gain and address those local issues, particularly for us within the county of Norfolk around nutrient neutrality. The draft local plan will cover a 25-year period from 2021 to 2046, and the key challenges within the draft are going to include the inclusion of criteria-based approach to guide decisions and promote appropriate forms of development, updating the housing requirements from 612 dwellings per year to a proposed 661 dwellings per year, the allocation policy to support growth across the district to support the needs of our communities and those existing services, Policies to enable sustainable development in the countryside to support those rural economies, which are so important, and also delivering housing to meet those specific local needs for those specialist and affordable housing. To identify over 40 new housing allocations for the delivery of approximately 4,500 homes and set out the alternative options for strategic development sites, possibly in the locality of Dereham, Robertson Barracks in Swanton Morley or Barker's Farm in Larlin. It updates our employment requirements with some 64 hectares to our target of 130 hectares, building on that investment and requirements across the whole of the locality, particularly focused around the A11 and the A47 dualling. It also introduces new and strengthened policies to address key issues, including climate change and our net zero targets, as well as really important to us across the district around health and well-being. It seeks to support the integrity of our incredible wildlife, and particularly around the Brecks and the SPA. We've got the River Wensum and that special conservation area. Finally, the plan includes new sites, proposed areas for local green spaces, which we've not done before, which are important to all of our communities across both market towns and our districts, making sure those open spaces, parks and playing fields are protected as we move forward. The draft local plan remains an evolving document, and the proposals set out are for major housing employment sites remain options for consultation. It's not a done deal. This is part of this process. The sites included in the plan at this stage remain specific options for the future work we all need to do as the council, working with promoters, but also our communities, to make sure that we get everything right through this process, and we need to be responsive to those infrastructure challenges and requirements. The next stage, subject to Cabinet's approval today, the draft local plan will be published for consultation from the 3rd of June to the 15th of July. The consultation will launch on the Council's website and be published on the Commonplace platform, where there will be a series of public consultation events, and we'll be rolling out a roadshow online for all our parish councils to ensure they understand how they can engage in this process. Following the consultation of this phase of the local plan, responses will be received, analysed and used to inform the final publication of the draft local plan, which will be published for engagement early 2025. In addition, throughout the rest of 2024, further work will be to develop the evidence base, which will underpin all of our local plans for the evidence as it moves forward and is progressed. I'll pause there. The recommendations are on the agenda pack itself, and I'm joined by Simon and Laura, who will help me with any technical questions I may have. But I'm just going to defer to Mark if there's anything else you want to add.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Over the last couple of years, I've been reading a lot of local plans from Northumberland in the north all the way down to Cornwall in the southwest of England. To me, officers and members together put together this local plan, and I think it suits Breckland better than any other plan I've seen up to now. I think it supersedes the current local plan in a lot of ways. It allows, I think, sustainable growth in places where I think the previous local plan didn't. It also allows probably organic growth in some of our local communities. And I think, you know, looking forward to my 100th birthday when this plan expires, I'm thinking that perhaps it would be nice to leave a legacy of something similar to this in my wake. Thank you, sir.
Lovely, thanks, Mark. Simon or Laura, anything else to add? No, great. Let's questions, comments in relation to this item, please. Councillor Paul Hewitt to start.
Thank you, Sam. And finally, we're at the starting gate. Some colleagues, including Linda Turner and myself, remember holding initial briefing meetings to the local community some 18 months ago in terms of when the plan first came out. Some people might argue that progress has been slow, but actually there's been a massive amount of things going on, Sam, if nothing else just indicated by your overview about the engagement, the consultation process, the scope of the document in front of us. But we are still, I think, at the start of a marathon rather than a sprint. We need to get this right, and we need to bring our communities with us on our journey, because it is much their journey as it is ours. I suspect there will be many, many challenges in the race ahead. You point out challenges about infrastructure, roads, power, housing targets. The statutory timetable is very tight indeed. But critically, I think as demonstrated by the level and the amount of community and member feedback, we need to reflect the fact that this needs to be a pragmatic plan. It needs to be flexible, but in a rigid framework. It needs to allow the communities who want to grow, and for those who do not want to see unwanted growth to have the teeth to make sure that growth isn't imposed upon them. Because some of our communities are looking to grow, and some most definitely are not. I think, as Simon would say, it's taken a lot of hard graft to get to this point in the journey. But now the real work, I think, will start. Not everyone, not every individual will get what they want through this local plan. But I think through a combination of dialogue, determination, and an openness to move forward and not just to look backwards, we will help shape a local plan that reflects the diverse nature, the geography, and the different communities that this preferred options report will promote, allowing Breckland, I feel, to continue to be a great place to live and to work. Absolutely commend the work done, commend the report, Sam.
Lovely, thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. OK, I think Paul has actually said quite a lot of what I was going to say, but as a ward member for Dereham, I want to speak up for my concerns for the infrastructure in Dereham, the highways. I would like some sort of confirmation that Dereham will not be subject to large-scale developments without appropriate infrastructure in place to make it happen and work for the residents in Dereham, please.
Okay, thanks, Alison. I'm going to look to Simon and Laura for the professional response to this in this process.
We're very conscious of the need to make sure that if Dereham comes forward as an allocation, that the work is done in front of that to make sure that communities, yourselves, the town council can have that reassurance that we are doing everything we can to mitigate those well-known issues within Dereham, particularly around highway infrastructure. Laura and her team have got a development team set up that includes national highways, it includes the Lead Local Flood Authority, it includes Norfolk County Council highways as well, and they're working very closely with the promoters of that site to seek to get that evidence in place and look at those mitigations that will be required, and trying, and I say that word trying because it's not always easy, to make sure they're brought in as early in the process as they possibly can be. We have a project manager that started with us last Thursday as well, who will coordinate that not only for Dereham but for the Robertson's Barracks and the Barker's Farm sites as well. So this is key to us, and we will be engaging with the Dereham members, the town council, and of course those community events will take place as well. I think even now I'm going and sitting in a hall in Dereham at some stage.
Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Alison. Just to give some reassurance, I know that myself, Councillor Clausen, Councillor Crane and Councillor Kiddle-Morris has actually been really clear, and I know the delegation made up of yourself, Councillor Monument and Councillor Richmond, around this. And as we move through this type of the process, we need that reassurance, as Mr Wood has said, to make sure that National Highways and Norfolk County Council highways are going to give us the reassurance that that work is going to take place to deal with the existing challenges the community of Dereham faces, and to ensure that any new future growth does not exacerbate that. So therefore, through the process and the work which has been fantastically led through Laura, is to make sure that we get that preloaded and that commitment is made so that the community of Dereham understand that this is not extra housing, it's going to create an extra burden and an extra challenge. And it is a big issue around where we place growth, particularly in any of our 5 market towns, around transport. And you heard earlier whether that's public transport or walking and cycling, but we need to make sure that any new growth doesn't impact. And I know that, as I said, you and your other colleagues, Monument and Richmond, have lobbied hard to make sure that through this that commitment's made. So me and the other 3 members of Cabinet have absolutely made sure that the policies within that and the work the officers are doing will ensure that does take place as we move through this process.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Sorry, Councillor Kybird.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. The south of the district is heavily influenced by the presence of stone curlew, and that evidence base, I believe, is now 15 years old. And at the time, we were governed by the precautionary principle of European legislation. Are all those factors still major factors that determine that we exclude a huge number of sites by reason of the stone curlew?
Thanks, Robert. So, yeah, as you look through the document itself in the appendices, you'll see that because of that habitat, that actually there is a lack of growth, particularly in the southwest of the district as a whole. That's not a new emerging issue. That's been a challenge we've seen over the life, whether we're looking at the LDF or the previous local plan, and once again, that's in the position. But as it moves forward, and you'll see through this, we've got 2 strategic growth sites in both Attleborough and Thetford of 5,000 and some 4,000 homes. We're not placing any further growth in those 2 market towns either. So Thetford has a really important role to play within the southern part of the district, ensuring that urban extension is incorporated into the existing historical market town of Thetford, but we're not seeing any further growth through the southwest part, particularly around that, but also due to the battle training area, which sits smack bang in that area as well, which isn't in our control and wouldn't absolutely be appropriate for us to look at from a DIO perspective for us to be moving that into the local plan either. I've got Councillor Peter Wilkinson, please.
Next one.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, Leader. As I understand, obviously nutrient neutrality is a big issue with planning near the rivers and things like that. And I understand the Conservative government has now put some funding up to help with to help fund businesses and possibly developers to create wetlands to try and offset nutrient neutrality. And I just wondered if Breckland Council was applying for any of that funding to help with that work.
Great, thanks. I'm going to defer to Councillor Kiddle-Morris, who sits on that on our behalf. Mark.
Yes, thank you. Yep, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I sit on the Norfolk Mitigation Fund member working group. We've been given £9.6 million by central government to try and encourage people to come forward with schemes that promote nutrient neutrality credits. They can be passed to builders and others, and of course and the Norfolk Environmental Credit Company also can broker those credits which are created by that fund. I do know we've applied now for a second tranche of money in the second round of about 13 million. Whether we get 13 million or not, I don't know. But just to reiterate that this is not a grant, this is a loan to those people who will have to pay it back with interest, and some of the interest may come in the form of share dividends or whatever. But yes, it's working. The launch of the scheme, in fact, is on Thursday of this week at 4 o'clock, and Andrew Holsworth and myself are attending that on your behalf. Thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thanks, Mark. Does that help, Councillor Wilkinson? Yes. Yep, brilliant, super. Councillor Jeremy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of quick points. Firstly, I was reading the report and it occurred to me that if you live in the smallest village in Breckland or even the largest town, there's 2 things actually that we all have similar concerns about. One is infrastructure, which you've already mentioned in your opening remarks, and the second is the environment. Having read the documents, I think actually there's a significant focus now on those 2 issues, and I think the plan is improved because of that added narrative and added focus. I'm really pleased to see that. It is a challenge and it affects the whole of the district, not just a particular part, but it's something that residents are concerned about. My question really was about the consultation, and I read section 1.26. Pleased to see there's a range of different methods that people can engage moving forward. I think that's encouraging. There's only 2 public events, Attleborough and Dereham. I can understand that, given that the focus of the plan moving forward is less to do with the sort of south and west of the district. With those events and with the public virtual events, it says they'll be held at times across the consultation period. Can you reassure me that we will try very hard to have sessions that work for younger demographic, people of working age, how are we making sure that the second phase consultation will involve all residents and be as convenient as possible? We want people to get involved, we want people to give their comments, and I think we need to ensure that the consultation is as accessible as possible.
Great, thanks, Councillor Jones. And just twofold, just a big thank you to all members from across the political sphere of this council for the work we've done in the workshops to build up to it. And I know that you and others have been big champions around making sure that the environment and infrastructure are front and centre of the plan, as you heard from Councillor Webb earlier today. And I hope that the introduction comments from me actually enshrine that we've got to learn from those to make sure that communities welcome growth, but in doing so that there are benefits to them around infrastructure and the environmental protections and improvements within their localities. Through the engagement process, we've got to make sure that this is a fit-for-purpose document. This is not our document as the council, this is Breckland's document in its widest sense. So we will work through with our consultants and our planning policy team to make sure that all of those sessions are done at appropriate times to get that mix. I know that previously you've raised concerns around some of the language barriers, that if English isn't their first language, and we've now got positions in place that we can work through that on a case-by-case basis. So all members of the council, if you are aware of that, please do speak to the planning policy team and we can work through that. I've already said that we'll be doing online sessions to all parish councils, and following the decision of Cabinet today, we'll deliver a quick FAQs for members to make sure they understand how they can use their networks, whether that's residents associations, business forums, to go out and share this wide and far so that everyone has the opportunity to do that. The final bit, luckily that Andrew Holdsworth straddles two parts of the local authority, will be using our most recent business engagement newsletter, which went out last week under Councillor Clausen, to make sure all businesses understand where growth's taking place, both from an employment perspective, but also where their future workforce and their existing workforce are going to live, which is a very important part. So we're trying to use all of our networks and all of our call signs to touch every part of the district. But we always welcome feedback. If anybody is aware of anything we're missing, please do feed into myself, Simon and Laura, so we can make sure we can pick that up as quickly as possible. Any further questions or comments in relation to the local plan? No. So I would like to formally move the recommendations, which there are three of. Recommendation 1 is to approve the local plan, Regulation 18, set out in Appendix 1 of this report. Agrees that the draft plan included at Appendix 1 is published for consultation for a period of at least 6 weeks. Grant delegation to the authority of the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with myself to make necessary changes or minor amendments of Appendix 1 in publication for the consultation. I'll formally move those recommendations. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. So move on to item 9, which is the long-term plan for Towns Fund. And I make no apologies that you have to hear my voice again, because I'm immensely pleased that this item is on the agenda today. And I'm pleased to report to colleagues, as you'll see from the papers at agenda item 9, the recent announcement for the Thetford has been selected as part of the government's long-term plans fund for the Towns programme. A fantastic news story for this town, but also for the district in its widest sense, and a real testament to the work of members, officers, the local Member of Parliament, partners, for positioning Thetford as a fantastic place of opportunity, but also one for deserving investment and support. The report for Cabinet today is to consider and enable us to mobilise and work at pace to meet the government's timetable to start the delivery for Thetford. As a district council, we will be responsible and accountable for the funding, but working in very close partnership with people and communities of Thetford to shape and deliver this activity. As set out in the report today, there are some important steps we must follow in order to receive this investment from government itself. Number 1, we must help to establish a town board for Thetford. In doing so, this will bring together a number of key public partners: the town council, the district council, the county council, members of parliament and the PCC. And this will help us to work on a range of representatives and individuals across the Thetford society. It has to be chaired by a non-politician as part of the government's requirements. We've been working with stakeholders and partners in Thetford to identify key potential participants and intend to confirm this approach to government and those names of those individuals later next month. The appointed first 2 years basis for this will be the initial board process, and they will help to set out the tone and the pace for the funding as we move forward. And we're grateful for the input of partners like the Town Council and the County Council and those councillors recently to help us shape that comprehensive long list of potential candidates. Number two, we must work with Thetford to help establish what the spending priorities for this fund should be. This isn't a Breckland-owned plan, this is a community-owned plan. And we're working through the parameters with that spend and focus largely on capital programmes. And this will be supported substantial engagement through the process, but building on the fantastic future Breckland Town Delivery Plan and the Council's NSIDP and the new economic strategy, but also the Town Council's manifesto and their business plan, providing that body to make sure that we're working towards. Number three, we must start and we must deliver. We receive the first major tranche of funding next year, but I'm keen that all of us in this room and across the district, but more importantly, the community of Thetford, hit the ground running and start to demonstrate the potential and the impact of this funding as soon as practically possible. The report in front of colleagues today helps us to start that process formally now, and further reports will be taken over the council cycles, but next month in particular, to make those necessary changes to our budget and our capital programmes as we move forward. And I'd like to put on my record my considerable thanks for the inputs of so many in such a short space of time to make sure this is a really positive piece of activity for Thetford. Not looking behind, but looking ahead at what Thetford's future can become and can achieve, build on its fantastic history and its manufacturing and the people of that community. Before making the formal recommendations, I'm happy to take any questions or comments, and I'm joined by Andrew, who will be able to answer any technical questions, which I will not know the detail of, I'm sure. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Councillor Jeremy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I first start by saying well done and thank you to the officers who for a number of years now have been submitting various funding applications to the government and elsewhere. I know this particular pot of money wasn't in response to a specific bid, but I am quite sure that all of the bids in the past that weren't successful made sure that Breckland and Thetford were on the radar, so that when this money became available, they'd at least known who we were. And I'm sure it's a nice feeling to know that actually they weren't all in vain in the past, so I think it's worth noting that. When you've been involved in local government for a while, you get quite cynical, I'm afraid. It's inevitable. I'll try my best to avoid it. But we've seen so many different initiatives in Thetford over the years that I've been a councillor and before, and some people use the phrase initiative fatigue. And I sometimes do feel that, but I genuinely believe that this particular pot of money, this particular opportunity, is fantastic news for Thetford. And actually, we've got to grasp this. It is a big opportunity for a number of reasons. Firstly, because it's a significant amount of money. It's a mixture of capital and revenue, and it's over a long period of time, 20 years. So actually there's an opportunity to get a real sense of momentum and learn as we go to an extent. But most importantly, and having read lots of the government papers and been on a couple of sessions with them online, there is a real emphasis that it is community-led and a focus on co-production with this. I'm really pleased that we're setting up a town board with a mix of views, a mix of knowledge. It's really important that we use the knowledge within Thetford, we use the local community to build the proposals that we want to deliver. And my plea to Breckland, I think Breckland started on the right focus of working together and enabling the community and enabling Thetford to come up with the solutions in a very sort of community-led way. So I'm really pleased to see the creation of the board, and I'm really optimistic about the opportunity that's before us. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Terry. Any other comments in relation to this? Councillor Kyber, please.
This is rather like moving Thetford forward with a very different governance structure and a longer timescale for delivery, as Terry has mentioned. But who sits on? I mean, the table for board membership has not been populated with numbers yet. You said that will follow next month. So how do we know what we're approving?
Thanks, Robert. So I just want to start off by saying some people have some negative views about moving Thetford forward, but actually it did do some incredible piece of work within the locality of Thetford. But I think actually, as you and Terry and others within the community of Thetford recognise, we probably did a bit of navel gaze and actually didn't actually put our strategic foresight forward about what are those historical issues we want to overcome. And we can't be all men to everything in that regard with lots of small tiny projects. We need to converge around 2 or 3 large-scale projects which are going to see a massive tangible change to the residents and the businesses of Thetford, but in turn making sure we're doing some of those small projects where people can begin to see that immediate change overnight. So I think all of us need to learn the lessons from moving Thetford forward, and as we move forward, as Councillor Jeremy articulated immensely well, that actually the long-term towns fund is a different type of programme, and over that long period of time it gives that certainty to both the public sector of all tiers of government who are involved in this process, to national government as well, but also more importantly the private sector, to make sure we're undertaking that relevant investment and we're working in partnership with them. We can't do this in isolation. We need to make sure that private sector funding is moving forward. In relation to the board and the briefings which myself and Andrew and Rob gave to all tiers of government, actually this is a really open position. Government are really prescriptive that you have to have the PCC, the MP, the local tiers of government, and it has to be chaired by an independent person. They then give some recommendations of people from the voluntary sector, from the education sector, the business sector, but it's up to us to then work out who those individuals are and making sure we're getting our best people around that table, because we don't want to turn into a talking shop. We want to make sure that this is moving forward at pace. And the risk is, as Terry said, he sets them up and I'll knock them down today, that actually if you have too many people around the table, that's what it will become, a talking shop. And actually we need to see that action. So through all of the suggestions which have come into Andrew and his team, they're deriving that from a long list to a short list. And you'll see as we move forward by the June meeting, we'll confirm who those individuals are. Now, as much as we hold the reins from a governance perspective and an accountability perspective, it will be up to the board to work out whether that needs to change over the life of this programme of activity. And if we haven't got the right people around the table, then we need to get the right people around the table. If we've got the wrong people around the table, the independent chairman needs to turn around and say, thanks so much for your time and effort, but actually you're not offering anything to the party here, and find someone else to fill in that space. And I think that's the important process, that it's not down to the town council, ourselves or the county council, that's the independent chairman and the board to decide who are the right people throughout the life of this plan and its cycle. And if you have any further ideas, please do feed them into Andrew and his team so that we can make sure that they're being given due consideration for those appointments. Councillor Hewitt, please.
Thank you, Sam. I acknowledge that there are challenges ahead, but at the end of the day, this is a great result. It's a great result for the district. It is a great result for Thetford, and a great testament to all the work that's been done at national, at county, at district, and in particular at local level, with local councillors really pushing hard in terms of promoting Breckland, promoting Thetford within the district of Breckland moving forwards. But I think, as we've acknowledged, again, getting the long-term plan money is just the start of a process. Yes, we need to establish a town board. Yes, we need to consult and develop a long-term plan, and a whole host of other elements which require action and intent and a desire to move forwards. The prize is there. The prize is there, I think, to regenerate our biggest town, the jewel in Breckland's crown, so that all of our residents and businesses can thrive. And I would urge everyone, both at district and at town level, to take the prize to move forward and create a Thetford that will thrive for decades to come.
Lovely, thanks, Paul. Any other questions or comments in relation to agenda item 9? No. OK, so I'll move those recommendations as presented in colleagues' agenda packs. So recommendation 1, that Cabinet notes the progress with securing 20 million worth of funding to support the long-term development of Thetford. That Cabinet agrees to establish a new advisory group to the Council, the Thetford Town Board, based on the criteria and the framework set out within this report. That Cabinet delegates to the Chief Executive in consultation with the leader the action required to establish, implement and operate the board and the fund. And we recommend to full council that this council accepts and agrees to spend all funding awarded through the long-term plan for Towns Fund, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, for Thetford, and in doing so agrees to become the accountable body for the funding. So we've got 3 recommendations for us and a 4th recommendation on to full council. All those in favour, please? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. So we'll move on to item 10, which is the Q4 Performance and Projects Report, and I look to Councillor Hewitt and Councillor Webb to present, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to present to the committee today the Q4 Performance and Project Report. Financial performance is usually included in this report. However, given the restrictive timescale for the end of year close down, this element will be brought to a Cabinet at a later date of the 24th of June 2024. A summary for both performance and projects will be given. I will do the performance and I will hand over to Councillor Hewitt for the project side of things. We are seeing pleasing data in Q4. The majority of our key performance indicators are at or near target. The Council continues to perform well in many metrics and, importantly, is able to report on further indicators in relation to housing. This is a result of the housing team, amongst others, completing work on their systems to allow for this additional reporting to be brought forward. Areas this quarter where performance has been challenging include the standards complaints dealt within timescale. The Council has previously reported 100% for this metric, but Q4 saw it drop to 86%. However, following investigation, this was related to a single complaint that was responded to past the due date. The reason for such a fluctuation is due to the low number of standard complaints we receive, which is good, meaning that even a single complaint being responded to late can cause the percentage to change quite a bit. The second area relates to website accessibility. This is a continuation of what was discussed in the Q3 report, as technical limitations prevent us from returning to target level quicker. These are actively being addressed under the website redesign project, which is going to be demonstrated at overview and scrutiny later this month. Thank you very much. I shall now hand over to Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. On the project side, there are now 14 high priority projects that are being overseen by the Corporate Project Service. Details of all of these projects can be found within the appendices to the back of this report. Overall, I'm delighted to say that projects are progressing well, with some still in the very early stages of development, including a potential project to install solar panels at Elizabeth House, which will enable the use of renewable energy whilst also reducing our running costs. This would follow on from the installation of solar panels at Dereham Leisure Centre, which has now moved into the delivery phase over the last quarter. Progress is being maintained on other key projects, such as the implementation of new and improved software for the planning and building control teams, the IDOC system, and the purchase and refurbishment of further homes to support the current challenge around temporary accommodation. If anyone has any further questions on the project, be delighted to answer them. Thanks, Sam.
Lovely, thanks so much. Any questions, comments in relation to Q4 performance? No. So, oh, sorry, Councillor Jeremy.
Just very quickly, Chairman. Alison, there's still a whole column where there's no agreed target. We have picked this up at scrutiny before, where it's very difficult to monitor the performance when there's not actually a whole agreed target for different indicators. I'm hoping that will be addressed in time, because we've had a number of quarters now where we've had reports of figures, which is really useful, but not actually any knowledge about what the targets are, particularly sort of in the housing department on the second page of the report.
Thanks, Terry. Alison?
I can reassure you that it's going to be done, and you'll see it at scrutiny.
Good, thank you. Anything further on that? No, so Cabinet are asked to duly note. Good, noted. So let's move on to item 11 then, which is the date of the next meeting will be Monday the 24th of June at 9:30 here at Elizabeth House. And I now formally close the meeting. Thank you very much all for attending.